I died giving birth to my daughter. But that's not the shocking part. What I saw on the other side changed everything I believed about faith, Israel, religion, and Jesus. This isn't a conversion story. It's a confrontation with truth. And if you're ready, I'll tell you what happened. My name is Leah Goldman. I'm 32 years old. And on May 7th, 2024, I died. I had gone into labor early that morning, excited and nervous like any first-time mom. My husband Daniel and I had waited 5 years for this moment. We'd just moved into our first house in Westchester, New York. I was teaching 3rd grade. Life felt settled, safe, sacred. But things unraveled quickly. The birth was going fine, until it wasn't. I remember the doctor shouting hemorrhage, and nurses rushing in with blood bags and instruments. I was sweating, shaking, then suddenly, still. The monitors flatlined. The shouting faded. My husband's sobs dimmed. Then everything went silent. And I was floating, above my body, above the chaos, watching it all unfold with an eerie calm. I could see the blood, my blood covering the floor. My husband was being pulled out of the room, his face contorted with panic. Doctors were working desperately, but I felt no fear, no pain. Just detachment. Peace. Then something shifted. I felt myself being drawn, not upward through a tunnel like you often hear about, but through a veil. Thin, but powerful. Like stepping from one reality into another. 1 second, I was in that hospital room. The next, I was somewhere else entirely. The light was brighter than anything I'd ever seen, yet it didn't hurt. The air shimmered with colors that don't even exist on Earth. And every breath, though I wasn't breathing, filled me with life more real than anything I'd ever known. I wasn't dreaming. I wasn't imagining. I had died. And something far bigger was just beginning. I stood there, wherever there was, surrounded by a brightness so pure, so alive, it should have overwhelmed me. But it didn't. It felt like home. Not just a peaceful place, but a presence. And then I saw him. He stood just a few feet away, radiating warmth, strength, and love so deep I could barely hold it. But what shocked me most wasn't the light around him. It was what I felt in his gaze. He knew me. Every thought, every doubt, every failure, and he loved me anyway. I didn't need an introduction. I knew it was Jesus, not the pale, sorrowful figure I'd seen in paintings. He was real, solid, human, and yet more than human. His eyes held galaxies, his smile, like he'd waited my whole life to see me here. Confused, I whispered, though I wasn't really speaking. But I'm Jewish. He smiled gently, like it wasn't the first time he'd heard that. I know who you are, Rebecca, he said, his voice both audible and felt. I've always known you. And in that moment, every wall I'd ever built collapsed. All the arguments I'd rehearsed, all the religious boundaries I'd been taught to defend, they didn't matter here. Not in front of him. I didn't feel condemned. I didn't feel converted. I felt seen, known, cherished. This wasn't about religion. This was about a relationship I never knew I already had, with the one I'd been taught wasn't for me. I stood there, still in awe, still trying to reconcile what I was seeing, and who I was seeing. But this doesn't make sense, I told him. My people, we were told you're not for us, that you're not the Messiah, that you belong to them. He didn't get defensive. He didn't correct me with doctrine. He just looked at me with eyes that held eternity and said, your people were expecting a conqueror, a political savior, someone to overthrow Rome. But I came first to save hearts, not kingdoms. His words were gentle, but they cut deep. Not to wound, but to free. I felt something unravel inside me. The part of me that always wondered, what if we missed it? What if we've been waiting for someone who already came? Does this mean Christianity is right? I asked. That I should convert? He shook his head slowly, not in rejection, but in sorrow. No religion has it all right, Rebecca. Not Judaism, not Christianity, not Islam. Each one has twisted parts of my message, for power, for control, for fear. I stood there, stunned. That wasn't what I expected. And then he said something that broke me completely. I don't see religion. I see hearts. And I've watched my Jewish people suffer for centuries, often at the hands of those who claim to follow me, yet never knew me. This wasn't about choosing a side. It was about returning to the center, to him. Come, he said, and with a single touch of his hand, everything changed. We weren't in the garden anymore. Suddenly, I was looking at Jerusalem, but not the one I knew from maps and memories. This was different, clearer. Like time and space had folded open, and I was seeing a future version of the city. I recognized the Western Wall, the old stone streets, the gold glow of sunset on limestone. And then, I saw fire, missiles, panic, destruction. I watched people running through narrow alleys, children crying, smoke rising, soldiers shouting orders. It was chaos, and it was coming. I turned to Jesus, shaken. Is this a prophecy? Is this what's going to happen? His expression was solemn. The world does not understand my plans for Israel. Even her leaders have forgotten. I saw Benjamin Netanyahu. Jesus spoke directly, firm but not cruel. He leads with pride, not with prayer. He believes he's defending my people, but true protection does not come from weapons. It comes from repentance. I was stunned. I had supported him, thought he was strong. But Israel needs defense, I pushed back. Jesus nodded. Defense, yes, but not vengeance, not cruelty. Israel has a calling, not just to survive, but to shine. And then I saw something I didn't expect. Peace, but not political peace. Heart peace. Spiritual awakening. Unity that couldn't be legislated. It was like watching a nation remember who it really was. Not just a country, but a light to the world. The vision shifted again. This time I saw families in Gaza, frightened, fleeing, clutching children in the middle of crumbling buildings. I saw Israeli airstrikes, and I saw rockets launched in return. I felt torn. I had always avoided thinking too deeply about the other side. I told myself we were defending ourselves. But now, standing beside Jesus, that excuse fell apart. I turned to him, struggling. Do you weep for them too? He didn't answer right away. His eyes just filled with the kind of sorrow that makes your soul go still. Then he said, Every child that dies breaks my heart, Jewish or Palestinian. Both sides carry blood on their hands. Both claim to serve me, while ignoring my command to love the stranger, the widow, the orphan. His words weren't political. They were personal and piercing. Then I saw leaders, Netanyahu, Trump, Arab dignitaries, and I heard Jesus say something I wasn't expecting. Each of them will play a role. Not because they are righteous, but because I can use anyone, even those the world mocks. Trump? I asked, almost incredulous. Jesus nodded. He doesn't fully understand what I'm doing, but he will help bring about a peace that seems impossible, not because he's wise, but because he breaks the old patterns. This wasn't about choosing sides. It was about recognizing that no human agenda could carry the weight of divine purpose. God's plan wasn't running through politics, it was rising above it. The next thing Jesus showed me wasn't destruction, it was awakening. I saw Jewish men and women, rabbis, soldiers, teenagers, grandmothers, being visited in the quiet of the night. They weren't seeking him. But he came anyway. In dreams. In visions. In sudden moments of overwhelming peace that made them question everything they'd ever believed. Some reject me, Jesus said quietly. But others, they're beginning to wonder. I saw a young IDF soldier dropping to his knees in a desert tent after seeing Jesus in a dream. I saw a rabbi, alone in his study, reading Isaiah 53 with trembling hands. I saw Jewish mothers secretly whispering prayers in the name of Yeshua, Jesus, without knowing why. And then, I saw something I thought I'd never witness. Leaders from different faiths, Jewish, Christian, Muslim, sitting at the same table. Not to argue, but to listen. There was disagreement, yes, but also something else, respect. Jesus turned to me and said, "A time is coming when the walls between religions will begin to crumble, not because one side wins, but because they finally start living as I taught." I was stunned. "It seems impossible," I whispered. "With man," he replied, "it is. But with God, all things are possible." This wasn't universalism. It was recognition that his spirit was moving where no one expected. The veil was starting to lift. Then Jesus took my hand again. In a flash, we stood on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. But something was different. The space looked familiar, yet transformed. Before us stood a magnificent structure, the third temple. I gasped. "Is this really?" Jesus nodded before I could finish. But he spoke gently, almost correcting my assumptions. "Yes, it will be built, but not for blood or ritual. It will be a house of prayer for all nations." I stared at it. The dome of the rock was gone. There were no protests, no war, just peace. Somehow, there had been a solution no one had ever imagined. And then the vision widened. I saw the earth itself groaning. Storms, rising oceans, wildfires scorching entire regions. I saw parts of the Middle East becoming unlivable, except for those using new technology that came from Israel. I saw political chaos in America, division, then reconciliation. A second wave of spiritual hunger sweeping across cities, campuses, and even Congress. I saw archaeological discoveries in Jerusalem, so profound they shook the core beliefs of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam alike. Ancient scrolls, hidden chambers, truths buried deep, finally unearthed. Then Jesus said, "These are birth pangs, Rebecca. Painful, but necessary. By the year 2030, nothing will look the same." But in his voice, there was no fear, only purpose. Change was coming, not to destroy, but to awaken. And the temple I had just seen, it wasn't just for one people. It was a symbol of what could happen when walls finally fall. I turned to Jesus, not wanting to let go. The peace, the love, the clarity, it was more than I ever knew existed. "Please," I said, "let me stay." He looked at me with eyes that held galaxies and grief. "I understand," he said gently, "but she needs her mother, and the world needs your voice." I saw her, my daughter, still crying in the nurse's arms, tiny, alive, needing me. And suddenly, I knew. This wasn't just about my life anymore. I asked him, trembling, "Will I remember this? Will I know what to say?" He placed his hand over my heart. "I will help you, and one more thing. Don't let them silence you." "Who?" I asked. "Your rabbi will doubt you. Your family may fear for your sanity. Christians will try to claim you. Muslims will call it a hallucination. Each will try to fit this into a box. But I don't live in their boxes." "Then what do I tell them?" I whispered. "Tell them I never stopped loving my Jewish people. Not for a moment. Tell them the veil is lifting, that I'm revealing myself again. Tell them truth doesn't belong to any one religion. It belongs to me." And then he said what I didn't know I needed to hear. "You are mine. That's all that matters." And with that, I was pulled back, breathless, broken, alive, but never the same again.